We're very happy to have you both with us in Digital Marrakech 5, Media Arts Morocco. So can you just tell us a little bit about your program and you showed here and your experience with the audience and a little bit about the program actually.
Well, I think I speak for the two of us that we're very happy to be here, and it's been an amazing experience. We really enjoyed engaging with the audience here and the students, and it was amazing to hear their interpretation of the works, because for us it was a complete new perspective on the works that we brought here. And we brought films in the context of the program The Migrant Moving Image, which we created at the Top, our foundation in Rotterdam. And this film program is a response to the great migration crisis that Europe is facing or experiencing today, which is the biggest crisis or migration crisis since the Second World War. And what we aim with this program is to shed new light on our society that is marked by migration and by movement and by refugees from an artistic perspective. Because we believe that the image that is being portrayed by the media is not sufficient or doesn't give a sufficient representation of migration as an intrinsic part of contemporary society. Because media only portrays an image of the migrant as either a victim or a criminal. And we believe the story or the narrative of migration is much more complex. And it's important to problematize this stereotypical image and to be able to create a space where our imagination is tickled and where we can further engage in a dialogue about this super topical issue that is so relevant in our lives today, both in Europe and beyond.
I think it's the first time you showed the program in southern country like Morocco.
Outside of Holland.
Outside of Holland,
yeah.
And I think also this theme is it concerns also people here, you know.
Absolutely.
Because there are two different ways of seeing the migration problem.
Absolutely.
There it's a problem, here it's a privilege, sometimes, you know. Mm-hmm. But they are not aware about the other side, you know, Babylon or paradise. Only once they are there. So, how was this experience showing that program here, and how it makes you think about the future of programming the program?
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean.
I think I do. Do you want to comment?
I think what was very interesting for us was to see how young the students were actually, and also looking at some of their own work, and that the questions that we're dealing with in the program are extremely universal, and every personal story has its own story to tell, with its excitement and fear of crossing over to another border. And by seeing the works that these young students produce themselves, and finding their own ways and the tools that they use in compiling a lot of different material through archival material and the material from this famous Moroccan film director. It was very interesting for us to see how, even though it's a very different part of the world, a lot of the same tools are actually used in order to tell a story and tell a narrative that at the heart is extremely personal and then becomes something universal, and by it becoming universal you can then narrow it down again in a different place for it to arrive again at a very personal place. And I think that was one of the comments that we got a lot from the students after the program, that they understood and they were able to interpret a lot of the films that come from many different parts of the world on many different levels.
Yeah, I agree, and I was really touched by the nuanced way people are looked at the works that we represented, and to see that it is indeed a universal theme or topic, but that it's also indeed important to look at it from all different perspectives. And to be honest, I think that the responses here were actually much more open than the response that we got when we presented the program for the first time in
How is that?
in Rotterdam. people were also touched there, and it also the program also really invited for dialogue and exchange. But I guess the art audience or the art community in the Netherlands do not have a personal experience, or most of them, the majority of the art community, let's be correct, do not have a personal experience of life in exile, or are not really confronted with the effects of migration and a world that is constantly changing, not directly.
But I wonder if this particular group that we showed the program to has as well.
Yeah, but they come from a different perspective. They come from a part of the world where Europe is, the place of your dreams, utopia. Yeah. Whereas if you are in Europe, one of the biggest fears is that Europe is going to be changed by this influx of migrants. So it is they are two different perspectives, I think.
And I'm also, for us, we know exactly what we see in the media every day in Holland from that perspective, and the program was made very much in response to what we see in mass media. It would be interesting to know how the media covers the migration issue here in Marrakech or in Morocco, in this part of the world, to also understand what the differences are in the imagery that we're showing to this.
I think it's a new phenomenon also in Morocco, because we have a southern migration also from the south, and we have a lot of migrants who live here. So it raises also a discussion within Morocco, but in a very different, way than Europe. People here also are, the majority are also in need. So it's a different. It's a different discussion, but it's the same problem. So it was really great to also that you can share your work. You said something very interesting last time about the young participants, and that they are very eager to learn.
True.
Why you say that, and why it's so different?
I personally was very touched by as they started to open up. In the beginning, some were more talkative than others, and then after a while, at the end of the programming, we asked them what their favorite film was, and they started to explain and to show the different perspectives, and sometimes they need a little push in order to really open up, and they came up with very, very smart observations, interesting questions, and what was extremely touching for us was that they couldn't say thank you enough, and that they were so appreciative and grateful for us having shown them these films, that it really made a huge impression on us. I mean, afterwards, after everyone left, we talked about that quite some time. People that came all the way, they were proud to come from Agadir and other places in the country to come to Marrakech and experience this film program. And,
it's true. They were different. They were from different cities, actually.
It was very, very special, and saying that their trip was completely worth it, and that they would come again, and that they really learned something, and that it opened their eyes. That was it was very, very rewarding.
Yeah, and I think there was indeed an eagerness to be exposed to the video material and the films, and some of the participants also said we've never seen this type of work before, or in this sort of context, and I was impressed by their questions. Like, I was impressed by the way they read the image material. There were some remarks from the audience when I gave a short explanation of what we had seen, and then some remarks came from the audience that were very clever and very on point. And they bared with us the whole program. Like, they really, the discussion that took place at the end of the presentation was long and intense. And I think if you would do a similar event, let's keep it close to home in the Netherlands. Of course, people are also interested, and they want to see, they want to talk about it. But I guess we are so much more exposed to contemporary art in Holland that we were a bit spoiled. Whereas here, it was really clear that this was new material for the students, and they're really trying to, also in their minds, trying to make new connections and new associations.
Yeah. There was a lady from the participants last time who said that this changed my perspective about looking at moving images. For her, was making a video, a film piece. It's only about the linear, classical way of making movies.
Ah, okay.
And she said that this changed my perspective, and I learned a lot that I can do simple things or different things, you know, also using video art or things like that.
I remember,
Remember
somebody
that.
said you can even use what's going on at the street, and like
yeah.
really daily normal phenomena become something, can become something really magical.
Exactly,
and,
exactly.
trigger
But
your imagination.
this is why we insist always to make workshops and master classes, you know, within our project.
Yeah.
Because there is a lack of this culture. It's not because of the people, but because of the some people, you know, from up there, or some curators who think that contemporary art or media art is only for the elite. You know, we have a problem here, and this experience, it shows us that it's not true. You know, because you saw it. I mean, they were normal people, no?
Absolutely.
They were not elite people. You know? So they understood it, they got it.
Yeah.
So, do you think that it's very important to do this kind of project still?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and like you say, I think it can function on many different levels. And like we discussed earlier, not one person can do all of the different levels because there's simply not enough time or energy or interest. But I think if you're able to kind of categorize it and chop it down into different perspectives and different areas, and use contemporary art really as an entry point into the imagination for all different types of people on all different types of levels, it has that power, and it's absolutely important for people to focus on that and to really get out of it that everything that's in it, because you know, good art has so many different levels on it, and can really touch people in many different ways from all different walks of life, and whether they're highly educated or not educated, well-traveled, not well-traveled, it can work on so many different levels, and I think it's worth exploring them all.
Yeah, it's I would dare to say that's a basic need. It's what makes us human. Yeah, our imagination.
Just one word about digital Marrakech and our activities. What they think.
Amazing, marvelous. Keep up the good work. For both the local community here, but also for people like us being able to engage with a new audience and new ideas. It was as interesting for us, I think, as it was for the participants in the workshop.
Yeah.
So it's amazing, and very daring organization, daring and wonderful attitude.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful.